Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Season 4, Episode 18, Mutant Gangland. Love this episode. We got to see just a giant group of mutants. We have, I can't think of the actual name. The Mutanimals, the Mighty Mutanimals, they come back into this episode. Minus Pigeon Pete for whatever reason. Whatever that joke was supposed to mean, we don't talk about Pigeon Pete. They come back in. We get to see the whole crew fight. We get to see, of course, the Turtles fight, minus Casey, April. We don't see Karai. Still no Shinigami. I'm kind of got a thing for her right now. And so we get the crew going up against Don Vizioso and his people. And this episode starts off, and it's kind of like a threat that I'm pretty sure isn't just going to be finished in this one episode. Like, they ultimately won in this episode. It's like, oh, we beat you guys. But they introduced this whole mutant, like anti-mutant artillery. And I feel like this stuff is going to come back in a really big way towards the end of the season. Because the Don is moving in, of course Shredder's gone, so everyone kind of has, a chance to kind of move up in the world. So this was his episode to kind of, make his claim towards the territory. And he comes out on top with, like they have like the, basically it's like knockout gas that only affects mutants. They have the mutant-seeking missiles. They have, of course, the Tommy guns, because, it's like the Mafia, so they have to have Tommy guns. But they have, like, mutant-killing Tommy guns and stuff, even though they shoot like stormtroopers, so they were missing the whole episode anyway. But it was still really cool. And it was like this, even though they were, like I said, they were missing, like, the whole episode. They'd get hit, they hit near them with the missiles, or even if they got, like, a direct hit, of course no one was dying. But this, I feel, was, like, just a small introduction to something much greater to come. And I'm really excited to see how this all plays out. Maybe, well, actually, considering what happened with Shredder in the last episode, I guess technically he would be affected by this stuff. But maybe he'd take it over from Don Vizioso and, still try to use it on the Turtles. Of course, make sure nothing blows up around him and his people, because, of course, his main crew, they're mutants. So that could affect them, and he has to be careful, of course, himself now. But I feel like this is something, like, it was a cool introduction to this material and how it's, like, anti-mutant rounds and artillery and stuff. But I feel like this was just the introduction, and we're going to get some really cool stuff in some future episodes. So that's what I'm really looking forward to. But this was really cool. Like I said, we got to see the Mighty Mutanimals. It was a big episode for Raph, and sort of his push to kind of do his own thing, which it's Raph. That's how it always goes. And it starts off simple, and, it's just a little sparring thing. And then it goes more into, of course, the Raph Leo thing, but it's really about Raph at that point. But we also get kind of just a lesson in general. It's a little bit about Donnie in there, in that opening scene at least, where Master Splinter's like, you're really smart and you see a fire, but sometimes you tend to try to put it out with gasoline. So, you kind of, like him taunting Raph was just making the situation worse. And I like that. And he's talking about them as a unit and saying, like, hey, I won't always be here to tell you guys what to do or to help you figure out. I'm trying to think of the word. I want to say, he said, like, foibles, I believe. I'd never heard that word before in my life, by the way. But he's like, nothing is permanent. Like, I won't always be here. And, like, even family is not permanent, which is, like, a super depressing thing for him to say. But it's a part of life. Everyone dies. So it was a really cool sort of opening segment, and it didn't focus on much, as much on Raph as I thought it would, because of course they have the Mutanimals in there. So it still, of course, obviously had its singular focus on Raph as the turtle, but it still had a lot of the other characters in there. So of course, Leatherhead. I always love watching Leatherhead fight, because as much as I like to see Slash fight because he's cool, I feel like Leatherhead's the best, because he comes in and he'll sometimes, depending on the enemies they fight, he'll actually like eat them. But in this case, they're actually human, so he can only, like, flip them around and stuff. But it's always fun watching him fight. Like, when they first go to see the Don, and the dude, I forgot the guy's name, but whatever, like, it was, like, the Hammer is what he called him. And he was always, like, had, like, a pin in his mouth, like, as a toothpick. And as soon as he flicked it, I'm like, it was going in slow motion. I'm like, this is going to, like, just tap his nose, and he's going to go nuts. And, of course, that's what happens. And he goes nuts, and they have to get into the whole fight. And that was a cool little fight scene. I actually really enjoyed the scene with Donnie, Raph, and Mondo Gecko. Mondo Gecko being hilarious this episode, trying to fight every time, except for, like, that, I think it was the very end of the episode, other than that, he'd try to get a hit in, and he'd have the perfect opportunity, like when he was trying to help Raph, and he hit the dude on the butt with a skateboard, and it's like, oh, and they just kicked him off the roof, and fortunately he landed on the car, because I'm like, he should have been dead from that one. But it was really cool, and they like destroy Raph. They just beat up Raph and leave him to die, and they actually kidnap Gecko and Donnie. So that scene was pretty cool. Raph is there, and he's like, he sees the turtle van get flipped over by this missile, and they're getting shot at and all this crazy stuff, and so now he's left and he has to go back to the team all injured. And then have a really great ending fight scene. Once again, I think the action has been kind of top notch for these past couple episodes, and my favorite part is actually when they go back into the hotel, because the outside fight was cool. That was what I liked with Leatherhead, when he was just like charging at people and like knocking them. Especially the one guy, he like flipped him. It seemed like he flipped him like down the street. I was like, man, he flew like 30 feet. So I love getting to see that. That I thought was cool, but it was also kind of funny because of how far he tossed him. But when he went into the hotel and like the turtles were sneaking in and stuff, I love that scene because it was like a really cool scene where they each, well, outside of Mikey, Raph and Leo had like two people apiece, and so they would like do a hit to like one person, and they were going like back and forth to take the people down, and I always like seeing that, and I thought that was a pretty cool thing. And then even the fight on inside the room, I thought was pretty sweet, and it was in a tight knit little space. That was very cool. Also funny, when they were about to experiment on Donnie and Gecko, Donnie's was doing the turtle thing, and like he was like sucking his legs, and then by the time they found him, it was just his torso and his head sticking out because he kept trying to dodge the knives. So I thought that was funny when they finally found him. I'm like, he actually could have just slipped right out of this thing if he'd done that in the first place. But I thought that was really cool, and I enjoyed the fight scene at the end. Both inside and outside, I thought was pretty cool. And so they get rid of the Don, they take out the hammer, and Don is sent, because Donnie like stabs the thing. He's just sent flying like past the moon basically. So he's still out there, and he's gonna come back full force. I'm sure. I wouldn't be surprised if the hammer came back as well, considering that's his right hand man. And also, I love the fact that they had him say "Hey yo" all the time, especially when they defeated him and it was in slow motion. He was like "Hey yo," and he like hit the ground. I thought that was actually really funny too. So great episode. Interesting villain, guy that we haven't seen too many times. I feel like he's honestly only been in like 2 other episodes, but it's probably been more than that. But he's one of those characters that doesn't show up too often, so it was cool to see him. And he was an actual threat. It's like the same thing with Stockman. It was like he actually showed up. He was an actual threat in this episode. All his goons, like I said, shooting like stormtroopers, which is why the turtles survived the whole episode. But still really awesome. And like I said, I feel like this has to come back. Maybe it won't be a big thing. Like, I would assume season finale is going to be, Mutant Shredder versus the Turtles, and maybe everybody, considering it's Mutant Shredder. But I feel like it'll come back before the season is over, or at least early next season, since technically this is the middle of season 4. I kind of forgot about that, so it probably won't come back this season, but it should be somewhere in season 5, I would have to assume, because depending on how they do this season, if they do it like the others, we're technically close to the end of season 4, because this was episode 18, and I believe they'd only do 23 or 24 episodes, I think, is how every season has been so far. So I don't know if that's exactly what they're going to be doing, but I'm really excited to see where they take it. Of course, if we are close to the finale, unless they just decided to make it a super long season just to, expand it so they don't like rush to the, epic finale or anything. But either way, thought it was a really fun episode. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about it. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. We'd love to know what you guys thought about the anti-mutant weapons that they had in this episode. If you want that type of stuff to come back, if you think it'll come back in a big way, or if you don't really give a crap about it, I would love to know that. Like I said, I personally think it's going to come back in a big way, and I'd love to see that, honestly, because it's just a new way for the Turtles to have to deal with the situation. We've seen them fight Shredder a bunch. We've seen them fight the Krang for a full season. We've seen them go back to fighting Shredder and ninjas and stuff. So I like when they have to deal with something different. And, we've seen them fight the Triceratons. So that's, those are like kind of like the 3 different classes. Like the ninjas, the aliens, and then the dinosaur aliens. So we've seen those different styles of combat. And I would like to see what would happen if they, like I said, I would assume because it's Shredder, he'd end up at some point taking over that, and maybe they'd make a new class of footbots or something. But I would love to see them have to deal with that, like, knockout gas that only affects mutants and stuff, and maybe that could result in some new costumes or something. Gas mask. It would probably just result in simple gas masks, and they don't change the whole costume. But they've changed the whole costume for less. Like Leo, like 2 episodes ago, there's no reason for him to be in like that black outfit and stuff with like the extra stuff. Outside of the fact that it was like a bit of a reference to some stuff, and it just looked really cool because he had like the black bandana and everything instead of the blue. So they could easily do that if they wanted to. It just depends on how far they want to go into like new designs and stuff. But I would love to see this stuff come back. I think it has really good potential, and because this was the first time we've ever seen it, I don't think it's crazy to assume that it'll come back, and hopefully it comes back in a really big way. I don't know how much they're gonna play up Vizioso as a big villain or anything, but I wouldn't mind if Shredder just kind of took that and was like, "This is mine now," because it's Shredder and he's way cooler to watch at any point. So I'd prefer it if Shredder came in and took that, but as long as it's done in a really big way, I really want it to come back, and I think it'll be cool when it eventually does. But like I said, want to know what you guys think about this sort of new way to fight against not only the Turtles, but all mutants in general. And of course, I would love to know what you guys thought about the episode in general. So like I said, please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.